In the closing stanza to his Gothic poem, The Haunted Palace, Edgar Allan Poe describes a torrential flow, a stream, as it were, of ghosts and spirits who, like a ghastly rapid river and through a pale door, as a throng rushed out forever, and who laughed but smiled no more. The idea of laughing without smiling, and that line in particular, was so evocative that the French poet Baudelaire actually plagiarized it for his odious lyric Heatu Timorumenos. And it is an evocative idea, laughter without smiling. The idea of laughter without smiling immediately brings to mind the idea of finding something amusing or something absurd in a phenomenon, but being unable to take joy in the phenomenon because the absurdity is so painful. In other words, it brings to mind the quip frequently attributed to Horace Walpole, that life is a comedy to those who think, but a tragedy to those who feel. Now, we're going to sketch out an adventure, one of whose central themes is divorcing joy from laughter, but the adventure itself should hopefully be some joy to your players, just as I hope that this video sketching out the adventure is a joy to you viewers. Welcome to PhD&D everyone, I'm Dr. Bowers, and today we're going to discuss the Ravenloft Domain of Dread known as Risibilos. As with my other Ravenloft videos, we're going to discuss what this domain is exactly, list some media which help us get an imaginative grip on the domain, and then sketch out an adventure. In this case, it's a short adventure which takes PCs from levels 4 up through level 6. That is, they will complete the adventure while they are level 6, and at its conclusion, level up to 7. So let's get started. What is the Domain of Risibilos? Well, the Risibilos is a small music hall, similar to those found in any decent-sized city. Its lord, Duerdon, was once a king, one so thoroughly humorless that he forbade his subjects the privilege of laughter upon pain of death. He is now cursed to entertain others, a task he is utterly unqualified for. Fortunately, the mists delivered him a partner, a ventriloquist's dummy carved in the likeness of Strahd von Zarovich. The eerie dummy has a mind of its own, insisting that it is the real Strahd, and that the creature currently sitting upon the throne of Castle Ravenloft is a mere impostor. It rages at the audience, and makes audacious promises to any who would help it regain its station. This is hilarious to anyone with the slightest inkling of who Strahd is, and their peals of laughter are agony to Duerdon's ears. Now, this domain is completely bizarre. As soon as you read about it, you wonder what the inspiration was. In his video, Top 10 Ravenloft Domains I'd Like to See Fleshed Out, Ted from Nerd Immersion speculates that maybe the reason why there's this ventriloquist dummy Ravenloft domain is because of an episode of Dice Camera Action, which featured a ventriloquist dummy that did insist it was Strahd von Zarovich. Perhaps this is so, but Risibilos is based on an older 2nd edition Ravenloft adventure, and the specific changes made to it make me think that there was something that they were actually going for, a specific niche in horror fiction that only this sort of domain could bring out. I'm going to do my best to specify what this niche in horror fiction is by bringing up a few bits of media which can help us get an imaginative grip on Risibilos, help us imagine what this place is supposed to be like or feel like. The first bit of media I recommend is the 1944 theatrical production No Exit by the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. This play famously features a trio of characters who are all trapped in a single drawing room forever. This drawing room is in fact hell, and it is the fate to which these three characters are condemned. Rather than being tortured by flames or by devils with pitchforks, however, these three characters are tortured simply by the fact of their own disgusting personalities and their insincerity. Now, importantly, these three characters cannot escape their fate, and importantly, in our adventure, the PCs will be able to escape. But there are some similarities that we're going to draw upon. First of all, the idea of being trapped in a mundane setting, and secondly, the insincerity and viciousness of the personality of Duerdon. Duerdon's bad faith, as it were, is very much akin to the bad faith of the characters in Sartre's play. I also recommend episode 28 of season 3 of the 80s reboot of The Twilight Zone, called Take My Life, Please. This episode chronicles the afterlife fate of a sinful comic who stole jokes in real life. In his afterlife, in hell, this same comic is forced to recount horrible, painful memories on a stage to a jeering, derisive audience, forever. It invokes the same themes of being trapped in a comedy club forever, and the misdirection of laughter and the use of laughter as a weapon. I also recommend the 1988 film Beetlejuice because the characters, Adam and Barbara, are trapped in a small space, very much as the PCs will be trapped in Risibilos in our adventure. Furthermore, the wacky personality of the titular ghost with the most is one that we might want to draw upon when giving a wacky personality to Punchan, the ventriloquist dummy that claims to be Strahd von Zarovich. I also recommend Stephen King's 1999 short story Room 1408, which was also made into a pretty good movie in 2007 starring John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson. Both the short story and the movie features a protagonist who is trapped in a single room, and who is given horrifying puzzles and misdirection along the way to try to escape. I also recommend the short story We Sang in Darkness by Mary Sangiovanni. It can be found in a horror anthology called Welcome to the Show. This story features a group of people who are trapped in a theater. Furthermore, they're not alone. There's a monster in there with them. The monster is caged, but as the story unfolds, that shows that that is not going to keep the protagonists from being harmed by the monster. I also recommend the short piece Room 88 by Roberto Casati and Akhil Vartzi. This isn't so much a short story, well, it is, but it's also a work of philosophy. It's from a compilation called Insurmountable Simplicities, which is a lovely compilation of short dialogues, each a page or two, which introduce profound and old puzzles from the history of philosophy. Room 88 is a one-sided dialogue about the identity of indiscernibles, but it's also a horror story, one which harmonizes with the feel that we're going to want to cultivate with our adventure. And nearing the end of our list, I must recommend the video game Please Don't Touch Anything 3D. This video game plays out like an escape room with many exits, and it does have elements of horror in it. Its mention here is important, however, because we're going to draw upon it to give some structure to the otherwise simplistic escape room into which any Risibilos adventure threatens to devolve. Speaking of escape rooms, the last two items on my list are two 2nd edition Ravenloft adventures, one of which is the adventure that gave us Risibilos the Domain. That adventure, Death's Cold Laughter, is basically an escape room. The PCs find themselves trapped in a court before a king and the court's jester. The jester taunts the PCs with all kinds of jokes and challenges, and the PCs quickly find that they can't just escape or kill the jester. It's up to the PCs to follow some subtle clues and realize that they're supposed to kill the king, and once they do, they escape and they win. That adventure is featured in an anthology called Book of Crypts, and that anthology features another escape room adventure which is very similar called The Dark Minstrel. In The Dark Minstrel, the PCs find themselves trapped in a room with an undead bard. They need to figure out who the bard is, what his past is, and then come to the conclusion that they must destroy his haunted musical instrument, in this case a harpsichord, in order to free themselves. Again, it's an escape room. Follow the clues, figure out that you need to destroy the harpsichord, escape and win. Now, since Risibilos is a single room or a single theater, and since it is based on an escape room adventure, we're going to construct an escape room adventure for our Risibilos adventure. In order to give the adventure some structure, and in order to decrease the likelihood that PCs will accidentally stumble upon the correct solution immediately, we're going to incorporate some interactive puzzles, as well as a replayability mechanic, and we will set up our adventure in 3 acts. In Act 1, at level 4, the PCs find themselves in Risibilos, discover who Duerdan is, as well as who Punshan is, and they find out that they are able to destroy and reset the puzzles in the room. In Act 2, the PCs solve a series of very simple puzzles and assemble a magical artifact, which then changes the social dynamic of the characters in Risibilos. Finally, in Act 3, the PCs confront Duerdan, fight him, and escape from the domain. This adventure is short and simple because, well, the domain is rather simple. I'd be interested in hearing your ideas about how to make it more complex, in fact. Anyway, let's begin with Act 1. In Act 1, the PCs awaken in a comedy theater that is otherwise empty. There are many tables and chairs, and it's dimly lit, and there's a brightly lit stage with some brick wall or maybe a red curtain, and on that stage, on a chair, sits Duerdan. He's a pale man, and there's a ventriloquist dummy that looks like a vampire sitting inert at his feet. For a map of the area, I would use the theater from page 74 of Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and I would have Duerdan introduce himself immediately, explaining that the PCs are trapped here, unfortunately, just as he is trapped here, but now that they're here, there may be some way for them to get out. Maybe they should cooperate, pool their thoughts. We need to find a way to escape this horrible place. It's a trap. It's a hell. Duerdan will explain that some kind of enchantment keeps him from even leaving the stage, but the PCs should be able to explore the theater just fine. Duerdan will direct the PC's attention to an apparently empty and unattended bar, but which has a notepad and a quill nearby. Duerdan will tell the PCs that if they write down an order for something on the pad, and then divert their attention to the stage, their order will be filled. In other words, after having directed their attention to the stage, if the PCs then look back at the bar, they will find plates, cups, and bowls containing whatever it was that they ordered. PCs will doubtlessly experiment with this and maybe have some fun. Make sure that whatever food or drink they order does arrive, and it is harmless, and it is the sort of thing that they would want to eat, except that, well, it's a little bland and tasteless. It's like a Shadowfell version of the food they would enjoy. Now, it's a virtual certainty that your PCs will start writing ridiculous things on the pad and seeing whether they can get them. They're going to write down a luck blade or a +10 sword of smiting or something. And in such cases, just don't have those orders filled. But there is one exception. If the PCs write down something like, a way out of here, or a way to escape, or something to help us get out of here. In that case, their order is filled with a plate on which there rests a giant golden key. That key actually fits in the door which would be the front door to the theater, the door which would lead to the exit, but which cannot be opened. If the PCs put the key in the front door lock and turn it, there's a click, and a nearby panel, I imagine it looks like a portrait or maybe a theater poster, spins around, revealing a bright red button. As soon as the button is revealed, two things happen. First, Duerdon sighs and says, "Oh no, you found the button. Please don't touch that thing." If the PCs ask why, he will reply that it leads to a rather painful experience. He doesn't elaborate, but at the same time, the dummy, Punxian, suddenly springs to life and says, "It's showtime! Press that button!" Duerdon will slap a disappointed hand over his eyes and introduce Punxian, his dummy. Punxian will spin around and rebuke Duerdon, saying that he is not Punxian, he is Strahd von Zarovich, ruler of Barovia, and he promises the PCs that if they find a way out, he will reward them with all of the treasures in the vaults of Castle Ravenloft. Duerdon will show obvious annoyance at this, tell Punxian to shut up, tell PCs not to listen to him, and here we have a fun opportunity for roleplay. Duerdon is very annoyed when the PCs interact with Punxian, and he's even more annoyed if they laugh at him or find him amusing. As Punxian delivers soliloquies about how he is the great Strahd von Zarovich, Duerdon will plead with the PCs not to listen to him, pay no attention to him, and stress the importance of pooling their ideas to try to find a way out. They're practically a comedy team, Punxian being the clown and Duerdon being the straight man. Now, if the PCs press the red button, it summons a horrifying fire elemental in the center of the room. I would flavor the fire elemental as being something hideous and ghastly and not just a generic fire monster. I might give it a flying speed, for instance, and describe it as looking like the titular creature from Fantasia 2000's rendition of Stravinsky's The Firebird Suite. When the creature arrives, it attacks, and it sets the theater on fire. Smoke fills the room, first making everything lightly obscured, and then heavily obscured. There's extreme heat, forcing PCs to make constitution saves. And as the creature is summoned, Duerdon shrieks, "Quickly, you must defeat it! You must survive in order to live through what comes afterwards!" And as the PCs battle this creature, more and more of the theater catches fire. Assuming the PCs defeat it, the fire then consumes everything, including the PCs. Everything goes black, and the next thing they know, the PCs are waking up in chairs, at a table, in Risibilos, just as they did at the beginning of the adventure. They do remember what happened, as does Duerdon and Punxian, who are on the stage. Punxian laughs and cackles, and Duerdon laments, "I told you not to press it. That's what happens when you press the red button." Punxian will clap and show amusement and urge the PCs to do it again, claiming it's very fun. At this point, the PCs level up to 5, and we proceed to Act 2. Now, Act 2 begins in much the same way that Act 1 did. The PCs wake up in Risibilos. The only difference is that they know a little bit more about what's going on. They know how to order the golden key, for instance, and it's likely they will order it again immediately. The key won't fit anywhere else, and if they reinsert it into the front lock and turn it once, the same panel will flip around, revealing the same red button. One thing the PCs are likely to do their second time around in the room is to put the key in the lock, turn it, revealing the red button, and then turn it again. They might try this in Act 1, too. If they turn the key a second time, there's a chime or a bell that rings out. Nothing else. If they turn the key a third time, then another panel opens up, revealing a large switch. The switch is set in the center, but it can be flipped either to the left or to the right. If the switch is uncovered, or I should say, when the switch is uncovered, Duerdon will applaud the PCs and praise them, saying that he didn't know about this switch, and that they are surely making more progress than anyone else who's been trapped in this place before. Oh, speaking of which, if the PCs ask about previous adventurers, Duerdon will simply say that they were killed off by the fire spirit, the one that shows up when you press the big red button. He'll add that, in order to survive the immolation of the theater, which inevitably results from that red button pressing, it's necessary to defeat the fire spirit. And it's also a good idea to have the fire spirit battles escalate in difficulty every time the PCs press the red button. At first it's just a fire elemental with a flying speed, but then it's a fire elemental with a flying speed plus some fire snakes, and so on. At this point the PCs have, 4 options. They can flip the switch to the left, they can flip the switch to the right, they can turn the key a 4th time, or they can press the big red button. And that's in addition to whatever exploration or role-playing they might want to pursue. If the PCs move the switch to the left, this causes the switch's panel to spin around so that you can't reach the switch anymore. At the same time, a zombie clot will spill out of a wall panel and attack the PCs. At the very center of the zombie clot is a strange golden enchanted sculpture, which can be found once the zombie clot is defeated. The sculpture is the exact same size and shape as the top part of a human skull, that is, the skull but without the lower jaw. This item, this enchanted skull thing, is going to stay with the PCs even if they reset the room with the red button. In other words, even if the PCs reset the room with the red button and they find themselves waking up again after having battled a fire spirit, this golden skull's top half will be resting on the table at which they wake up. Now, if the PCs flip the switch to the right instead of to the left, this also causes the switch's panel to spin around and obscure the switch so it's no longer accessible. But instead of a zombie clot, the PCs are attacked by 8 Grimishkas and 2 swarms of Grimishkas, which spill out of another wall panel. The last Grimishka that dies has an enchanted golden sculpture in a pouch-like cavity. This golden sculpture is the exact same size and shape as the lower jaw of a human skull. And like the other aforementioned golden sculpture, this one too will stay with the PCs if they reset the room by pressing the red button. Now this is important because, as I said, if the PCs flip the switch to the left, then the panel closes, and if they flip the switch to the right, then the panel closes. That means that in order to get both the skull and the jaw, the PCs need to reset the room once. In other words, they need to flip the switch to the left, get the top half of the skull, and then reset the room so that they can open up the switch again and then switch it to the right and get the jaw. Or they start out by flipping the switch to the right, getting the jaw, then pressing the red button to reset the room so they can open the switch again, and then throw it to the left, getting the skull's top half. In addition to that, however, there's also the matter of turning the key in the front door a 4th time. If the PCs do that, then the key is sucked into the keyhole of the front door and cannot be retrieved. Not unless they reset the room and then order it again from the bar, that is. In addition to being sucked into the keyhole at the front door, turning the key a 4th time results in a pair of Strigoi descending from above and attacking the PCs. Once the PCs defeat these Strigoi, a 3rd golden sculpture falls from the ceiling. This enchanted golden sculpture is exactly the same size and shape of a headless human skeleton. Like the other 2 golden sculptures, this skeleton will also remain with the PCs if they reset the room with the red button. Now, it should be obvious to your PCs that these 3 sculptures go together. They fit together to form one whole, complete, golden human skeleton. Assuming the PCs go through the battle and the puzzling that's necessary to do this, and they assemble the golden skeleton, it stands up, acquires the statistics of a vampire spawn but with an intelligence of 18, and then loudly proclaims itself to be the real Strahd von Zarovich. This infuriates Puncheon, and the 2 start to argue, and it also infuriates and depresses Duerdon, who buries his head in his hands. At this point, the PCs level up to 6, and we proceed to Act 3. In Act 3, the PCs witness a dispute. Puncheon and the Golden Skeleton are both arguing over who is the real Strahd von Zarovich. They're all citing ridiculous details and claiming to have accomplished ridiculous things, and threatening each other by marshalling the armies of Ravenloft to attack the other one. And of course, each creature is imploring the PCs to side with them and to believe them that they are the real Strahd. Duerdon at this point is showing obvious irritation, even anger. He's trying to shout over the 2 creatures and tell the PCs not to pay attention and to instead try to find some other way out. Quickly, some other way. They've made such great progress so far. Don't get distracted by these idiots. Try something else. And at this point, the DM should just get creative and play some yes and with the PCs. Allow the PCs to discover all kinds of crazy things by flipping over tables or ripping up floorboards. They'll discover other weird puppets and artifacts that claim to be the real Strahd von Zarovich. What's this behind the bar? Why, it's a teddy bear claiming to be the real Strahd von Zarovich. What's this over here? Why, it's a rolled up portrait. If you unroll it, it looks something like the Mona Lisa, but the painting starts talking, claiming to be the real Strahd von Zarovich. Or maybe they order a round of hamburgers, and each hamburger flaps its bun and its patty, saying that it is the real Strahd von Zarovich. Have things get absurd. In the midst of the absurdity, the PCs should start trying weird things. And here is an ideal time to drop the hint that Risibilos is a prison, and to escape, the PCs simply need to get rid of the prisoner. They could do some lore checks, like Arcana or Religion checks, to know about the metaphysics of the Shadowfell, or what I would prefer is that if the PCs write for more assistance beyond the key at the bar, if they say, give us a way out but not the key, have them receive a note back in return. The note will simply say, this is not your prison, and it's not Puncheon's either. That should be more than enough of a hint that the PCs should fight Duerdon. When the PCs choose to battle Duerdon, I would have him transform into a monster which is clearly monstrous, something which the players could recognize as being a standard, clear horror monster, like a Nosferatu. Duerdon will scream to stop all this ridiculousness, stop all this absurdity, stop laughing at him, stop mocking him, take him seriously, and he will attack the PCs right back, saying if they cannot help him escape, then they must die. Now, one thing that's really nice about this final battle is we have set things up in a way where there are many dials, as Sly Flourish says, that we can turn to increase or decrease the difficulty. You could choose to add Puncheon as some kind of carrionet minion if you want. You could choose to add the Fire Elemental. The monsters who appeared previously could also be reincorporated, the Strigoi, the Zombie Clot, the Grimishkas. There are lots of ways to tailor this final fight, but once it ends, once the PCs defeat Duerdon, the dummy Puncheon collapses as well, and there is a satisfying click as the front doors open. Beyond the front doors to Risibilos, there flow and billow the Shadowfell mists. Who knows where they will take the PCs, but they will certainly take them out of this place and on to their next adventure. And that is our adventure in Risibilos. What do you think? It's a weird adventure, but that's because it's a weird domain. What ideas would you have for running this? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what other takes people have on this particular domain. It's so absurd and bizarre. As always, thank you for watching. Don't forget to do all the internet things. Click like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell icon if you want notifications on new videos that I upload on this channel. And thanks very much for watching. As for next time, I am looking forward to covering something that is much less silly and much less absurd. You know, like a domain with singing werewolves? See you next time. Thanks.